আসসালামু আলাইকুম ভিউয়ার্স। আমাদের আজকের টপিক কার্ডিওভাস্কুলার সিস্টেম অ্যান্ড হার্ট। যদি আপনি আমাদের চ্যানেলে নতুন হয়ে থাকেন, অবশ্যই আমাদের চ্যানেলটিকে সাবস্ক্রাইব করুন এবং পাশে থাকা বেল আইকনটি বাজিয়ে দিন। বেশি কথা না বাড়িয়ে চলুন ভিডিওটি শুরু করা যাক।
So we're looking here at the heart. Okay, so we'll start with the main structures and kind of go through the blood flow as it comes through the heart. So as blood comes to enter in the heart, it comes through your vena cavas. So you have a superior here and an inferior down here. Okay, the superior vena cava is formed by the two branches here. So you have a left brachiocephalic vein and a right brachiocephalic vein. Those empty into the right atrium. On the right atrium, you can see this kind of flap here over to the side. So this is an auricle, right auricle. Once the blood is in the atrium, it gets pumped into the right ventricle. Okay. So from the right ventricle, it's then pumped up into our pulmonary arteries. Goes to the lungs, comes back, it's now oxygenated, and comes through the pulmonary veins. The pulmonary veins get pumped into the left atrium. The left atrium pumps blood into the left ventricle. And from there, it gets pumped to the rest of the body, comes up your ascending aorta, crosses over the transverse aorta, and down the descending aorta. So that goes down to the main part of the body, going up into the cranials and brachial parts of the body. You have these three main arteries here. This first one is the brachiocephalic artery, and you have your left common carotid artery and left subclavian artery. Okay, so we're looking at the heart here. We're going to look at the major arteries and veins of the heart itself. So I've already removed off the top my aorta, my pulmonary arteries and veins there, and the superior vena cava. So take that off so that we can see down. So this is my aorta where it first comes out of my left ventricle. And we can see it has two branches, one that wraps around this way and one that wraps around this way. Those are my coronary arteries. So you have a left and a right coronary artery. So let's follow first the left one. So as it wraps around this way, it's got two branches, one that goes and wraps around the left atrium. That's your circumflex artery. And one that comes down the middle here in between the two ventricles. This is my anterior interventricular artery. Okay, so interventricular between ventricles, and it's on the anterior side. If we look at the veins immediately next to it, so we see this one vein here. It's right next to our anterior interventricular artery. This is called the great cardiac vein. You can see it comes all the way up and kind of wraps around where the circumflex artery is and follows it, again, around the left atrium. Let's look at the right coronary artery. So it comes off the aorta there and wraps around down. We can see there's some marginal arteries branch off here. You also have the adjacent veins next to it. These are our small cardiac veins. Okay, so that's on the front. Now let's look at the posterior side of the heart. So reorient ourselves here. This is the circumflex artery wrapping around. The great cardiac vein immediately adjacent to it, again wrapping around until it gets to this region right here where it begins to swell. This is the coronary sinus. Okay, coronary sinus is the swollen part, and branching down from it is the middle cardiac vein, which is immediately next to the posterior intraventricular artery. Okay, so we're looking at the internal anatomy here of the heart. We'll follow it just like we follow blood flow through the heart. So that begins here in the right atrium. Okay, so in the right atrium, we've got the fresh blood from the body coming in, typically unoxygenated. You can see the fossa ovalis here. It's a remnant from when you were in utero. Now it's just kind of an indention there in the right atrium. The atrial themselves are made up of this particular type of muscle called the pectinate muscles. They help constrict the arteries, or the atrium, sorry. The atrium, so we have the left and right atrial here. They're separated by the interatrial septum. So that's kind of the separation between the two atrium themselves. Okay, so now we'll flow downward through this valve. This is our tricuspid valve here. Okay, we can see the tricuspid valve has these kind of tendricle connection points there, chordae tenindae. Okay, these connect to papillary muscles here, which help open and close the valve. So now we're inside of my right ventricle. So just like the pectinate muscles here in the atrium, the ventricles also have their own, the trabeculae carneae. Okay. So then blood will flow from here up my pulmonary semilunar valve, the pulmonary vein, or pulmonary arteries, coming in through my pulmonary veins into my left atrium, down through the mitral or bicuspid valve. So we can still see those same similarities, papillae muscles, etc. And eventually out of the left ventricle, coming up through my aortic semilunar valve, which is here, and again out the aorta.
আমাদের ভিডিওটি যদি ভালো লেগে থাকে অবশ্যই আমাদের চ্যানেলটিকে সাবস্ক্রাইব করুন এবং লাইক কমেন্ট শেয়ার করে আমাদের সাথেই থাকুন। ধন্যবাদ।